Hello and welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Thank you very much for joining me in today's video, and pay no mind to the Lufthansa A318 that is sitting right in front of me on the apron. I have no idea why I am parked here with that aircraft right in front of me there, or conversely, why that aircraft is, well, it seems to be so far over to the right when the taxiway line appears to be on the left-hand side of its left wheel or main landing gear. I have no answers to any of that and plenty of questions. Nevertheless, we are going to ignore all of that, and today's flight is going to be more of maybe a partial tutorial, an in-depth flight looking at the Avro RJ. I'm going to be going from a full cold and dark startup, properly explaining things along the way as best as I can, the way I do it anyway, taking off, showing off the autopilot, showing you the LNAV systems, the hand flying of it, the autoland system, even though we will not be using that, showing you basically how to fly this aircraft right from starting it up on a cold and dark startup all the way to landing it. And if you want to follow along, feel free to do so. All you need to do is set yourself up at Echo Golf Charlie Charlie, Manchester Airport, and after the intro we'll be going over the flight plan, the destination, which is Gatwick, also how to use SimBrief and Navigraph should you need to do so, but that is not strictly necessary. I do highly recommend it. I also recommend some sort of head tracking or VR, although again, not necessary whatsoever. It just adds a little bit to the immersion. So make sure you stay tuned. Let's get started. And let's fly this aircraft from a cold and dark state all the way over to Gatwick Airport, which is where we're going, Echo Golf Kilo Kilo. Okay, step one for this aircraft is going to be to sort out your fuel and boarding. This is how I do it. Of course, there are procedures that in the real world you would do slightly differently. So for example, this refueling would have been going on for a while, it would have probably been done. The passengers would not be maybe being loaded up just yet. That would be after the APU has started. We can have some air conditioning running, then the passengers would be loading up, but just in the way that I do it so that I can record, this is what I'm going to do. Now, I would select, or you could select your passengers there and your fuel quantities there, and then click here and press refuel, and here and press board. However, because I'm using SimBrief, I can go to OFP, fetch that flight plan. There we go. Now if I go over to aircraft, import SimBrief OFP payload. Yes, so press import. Now you'll see that it has figured out how much fuel I need according to my SimBrief payload. So if you want to copy it, this is what you want. Start refueling. And since I've got it as instant, it will refuel immediately. I'm carrying 63 passengers. Start boarding.
Boarding is complete.
And there we go. So that's ready to go. Now, before you go off of this page, take a note of your outside air temperature, OAT, or sometimes known as SAT, and click on this bit here. Now, the reason for that is if we look down here, this is our nose wheel trim position, and that's our trim wheel. As you can see, I can turn it around. Let's move it well out of trim, shall we? There we go. That is definitely well out of trim. What I'm now going to do is click on that number there. And now the aircraft is trimmed for our current payload and fuel load. So that is just a little shortcut. We do not have to come back to this page until we are going to be removing the chocks. The next thing that I like to do is make sure that if you are using SimBrief, go over to the OFP and have a look at that and have a look at your METAR. So Echo Golf Charlie Charlie, today pressure seems to be 1018. Now of course, this may not necessarily be the case. Might need to get the ATIS up because Microsoft Flight Simulator has a habit of getting the weather wrong. Now, if you are using Active Sky, you might have more accurate weather, maybe not depiction, but you might have better weather representation in certain locations. If you are using X-Plane, you could also probably follow along with this, and you might have better weather depiction as well. So that is what I am going to be looking at. Also, what I want to do here is press that pedal adjustment lever, or pull the pedal adjustment lever, or handle. It's a handle. That will get rid of my yoke. That's really useful on both sides. There we go. So now that I have that, the next thing I want to do is, of course, start getting this aircraft started, because there's no point having all of this if I cannot, well, put this in anywhere. The aircraft is in a complete cold and dark state, so I need to get the aircraft started. Start off by pressing Shift and Spacebar if you're in Microsoft Flight Simulator to just reset your view. Then you can press Shift 1 for left instrument panel, Shift 2 for the center instrument panel, Shift 3 for the right instrument panel, Shift 4 for the rear console, radio stack, whatever you want to call it, Shift 5 for your weather and FMC, Shift 6 for your engines, Shift 7 for your lower overhead panel, Shift 8 for your upper overhead panel, and the useless one for this particular startup is Shift 9, which is over the nose. Not, as I said, it's good for views, maybe good for landing actually, but not particularly useful for what we want to do. So now that you know those, let's go ahead and press Shift 7, because this is where we are going to start. In fact, before you do that, it might be a good idea to have a look and make sure that everything is either off or on automatic. So up here, you want all of these off. You want that on both. Brake fans can be off. Anti-skid is off. Auto spoiler will be marked as on. Lift spoilers yellow and green are off. Engine pumps are off. PTU is off. AC pump is off. DC pump is off. We can go over the ground tests, but I'm probably not going to go over all of them. Lights and notices, all of them can be off at the moment. We will be switching them on momentarily. Flight air conditioning, we want to have on automatic, standard, off, standard, and automatic. And then back on the lower panel, we want to make sure that the cross feeds are shut, your pumps are off, your fuel pumps, that is, your standby pumps are normal, your common feed is shut. Be aware that on the 146 and the RJ, these switches sometimes are inverted, so you can see that for it to be shut, you have the switch in the up position here, and for the standby pumps to be in normal, it is the up position, whereas for the fuel pumps, off is in the down position, and on is in the up position. Standby pump on is in the down position. So just be aware of that. External AC is off. Bus ties are on automatic for AC and DC. Standby inverter and standby generator are on off or armed. Generators are currently off or offline. Generators 1 and 4. APU generator is offline as well. Galley power is in shed mode. APU is stopped. Engines are on normal. Start master is off. Flight start is off, continuous ignition is off, the engine switch is currently in run mode. Ice protection, at this point, really you want them on. Now, depending on the operating procedures of various different airlines, some of them preferred them to be switched off before cold and dark, some of them prefer to be left on at once you have shut down the aircraft, leave them on for the next crew to have them ready to go. Others prefer to have them on just before engine start, so I would switch them on at this point in time. Screen heat, all your ice protection, all of that should be off, both your anti-ice and your screen heat and pitot heaters. Cabin air is fresh, packs are off, ram air is shut, APU air is off, and all your engine air is off, and your zone temperature detection is on both loops. That seems good to go. Bottom one does not really matter. So now what you do, change that switch or turn that knob to battery. You'll notice that battery 1 and battery 2 both have 25 volts. Great. We can switch the battery on, flick those two switches on, and you'll start hearing the aircraft starting to come to life. Not enough to really do much, but enough just to do some of the basics. Now, what are the basics? We're going to go through the flows again. Flight deck emergency lights need to be armed. That's fine for that bit. Anything else on in this area? No, that is fine for now. Now we need to go up to the upper panel, and we're going to start off in the top left and start getting a few things started. So your damper master goes on. FGC select, you can select whichever one you want, 1 or 2. Let's select 2 today. Autopilot master goes on. Avionics master goes on. Ground ignition remains on both. Brake fans remain off for now. Anti-skid goes on. Lift spoilers yellow and green go on. Everything down here will remain off for now. On the lights and notices side, what you want to do is switch on your nav light, which I have bound to an actual switch. So there we go. That is the nav light on. No smoking can go to automatic. Cabin emergency lights can be armed. That is that bit of the aircraft ready to go. Now down here, before you do anything else, what I tend to do is get my barometric pressure. In this case, I'm just going to press the comma key to sort it out, and it looks like the barometric pressure is correct. So Microsoft Flight Simulator might have this in a correct fashion. Now, if we press Control and 1, we can have a closer look at this. Standby attitude indicator. We'll click that to start to uncage it and get that to settle. Go over here. Nothing really matters at the moment there, and if we press Shift and 3, we've got this MWS, which is your master warning system. That is your that is all these lights here, and your warning light for your caution and engine fires and all of that kind of stuff. What we want to do is we want to push that to actually get that up and running. Now we can do a test for it by pushing it in one more, and you'll notice that all of these lights are now illuminated. And the bell actually started sounding. But that's fine, we can cancel it just by pressing that. Okay, good. We are in a fairly good state at this point in time. Now, sometimes, for some reason, this might just be a Microsoft Flight Simulator thing, the fuel, it doesn't have the throttle levers in the cut-off position at cold and dark. For some reason it has them in the on position. I have had it where it started it in the cut-off position, and then for some reason the engine 1 has just gone into the run position, idle position. No idea why, so do go ahead and check that too. At this point, I would say that we are pretty much ready for an APU start. Now, it's always a good idea to refer to checklists, but I think I might have everything sorted. I'm just going through a very quick checklist on my phone, and yep, it does appear that I have everything selected the way I want it to be. Okay, good. So now that is done and ready to go, what we're going to do is start the APU. Now for the APU, we want to use the innermost left pump, so we'll go ahead and flick that switch, and after that we will go up here and get the APU to a start position. You'll hear a ding. You'll notice that it says APU oil low pressure, start power on, and the gas temperature, turbine gas temperature, is now rising. The RPM of the APU is rising. You might be able to hear it if I shut up for a moment. Extremely difficult to hear it, but it is there. There you go. Now you can hear it properly as it gets to 100%. Okay, now as soon as the APU power available comes on, I would recommend just changing that knob to the APU generator, switching on the APU generator like that, so it goes from off to offline. You'll see that we have the power. Flick that to on, and the aircraft comes to life. There we go. We now have the aircraft coming to life. I would switch on one of the packs at this point in time. So let's switch on pack 2, and APU air goes on as well. And you'll start hearing the air conditioning doing whatever the air conditioning needs to do. Great. Oops, that's not what I meant to press. Right, now back up to the top we go. So, a few things we now need to check. We need to get the DC pump on, and we need to get the AC pump to automatic and the PTU on for a check. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now you'll see it says brake low pressure. That's disappeared. The reason that's disappeared is you can see that over here in the yellow hydraulic pressure gauge, we have 2,500 coming up to 3,000 psi of brake pressure. When it goes below 2,500, that is when it says that we have low pressure. So we'll just go back up there. No, Shift 8, back up here. We'll go to AC pump on, and we'll go to PTU on. Now, once you switch on the AC pump, you'll notice that the yellow pressure shows up here as well. And if we now go PTU on, you'll see that this one comes up, which is part of the green system, I believe. So that is the power transfer unit. That on an Airbus, you hear really weird noises with these. In fact, I think this has a similar noise. But now we can go ahead and switch those two off, and it will immediately drop once again. Good. At this point, we also want to switch on the two EFIS masters, and you'll notice that this doesn't look great. What we want to do is over on the co-pilot side, if we look around, no, come on, look around, there we go. What we want to do is switch this to align. Now, depending on where you are in the world, the higher or lower your latitude is, you will start, this will take longer. So over here, this could take up to 12 to 15 minutes. There is a quick way to do this. So if you do not want to wait for it the entire way, what you do is we just switch those off. I'm going to click on it, lift it up, go align, nav, align. And do the same for this, align, nav, align. Now that should be done, I believe, within a minute. So there we go. Okay, the next thing we want to do is, whilst that is going ahead, sorting itself out, I want to start programming the FMC, which is this bit down here. So we'll click FMC, and we can do this on both if you want, but it's not really necessary. Position initialization. We are at EGCC. We'll go ahead and copy that IRS position, pop it in there. Gates is not necessary. We can put the route in here if we want to. However, because I have SimBrief, what I can do is I can go up to initref, then index, load SimBrief route, request, and there we go. We have the route. So if I go to route now, origin and destination is in. Now it says enter performance initial init data. We'll go ahead and do that in a minute, but what I want to do is give ourselves the flight number and the runway that we are expecting. Now I'm not sure what runway we're expecting today, so at this point in time it's a good idea to look up Manchester's ATIS, or I can go ahead and look at it on the chart. So I'll go departure, and we'll have a look at, I guess if we look at the approach for any runway, it should have the ATIS on it. There we go. So we have 128.180. So we go ahead and press, is it 4? Shift and 4. Over here, 128.180. It's going to take a while to get through. There we go, and we'll go ahead and arm that. So we should start hearing the ATIS information, and we will pay close attention to that.
Manchester Airport information, Mike. 1000 Zulu. Wind tree 10 at 8. Visibility 6. Sky condition clear. Temperature 6. Dew point. QNH 1018. Visual runway 23 left and ILS runway 23 right in use. Landing and departing runway 23 left and runway 23 right. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact you have Mike.
Okay, so it's 23 left, 23 right in use. We are going to be taking 23 right today. So I can already put that in. We'll go 23 right, select the runway, and there we are. Now, at the moment it says direct to Listo. Now, I do not want that, because if we look at my OFP, we want the Listo. In this case, it says to Sierra. I think that's a runway 5 departure. So clearly we're not going to be doing that. It's probably out of Manchester. Come on, get the right. There it is. It's probably to Romeo. So if we go to departures and arrivals. Departures, 23 right. To Romeo. That's the one I am after. So we'll go ahead and do that and execute that for now. We'll sort out the arrival once we are on autopilot in the air. Now, let's go ahead and sort this out. So, cruise altitude, cruise wind, and all of that. That is also found right here. So, cruise altitude today is going to be flight level 200. Now, for some reason, I cannot put flights level into the FMC. I have to put 20,000 feet. So that is what I'm going to do. Always round down your block fuel, round up your zero fuel weight. So we've got block fuel of 4 and we've got zero fuel weight of 32.3. So we'll go ahead and pop those in. So 32.3 is the zero fuel weight. You can see we already have the 4 on board. Now, if you were refueling, let's say in a realistic fashion, and the APU was running and you were still refueling and you had 3, you can put in the plan, you could put 4 right here, just like that. And that would then tell the computer what to do with the calculations. Let's put reserves of 1 in that. Flights level 20,000 feet. And then we need our transition altitude, which at Manchester is 6,000 feet. We need our cruise wind, which will be the average wind, and our ISO deviation, or the outside temperature, wherever it is. So if we look at this, you'll see that we have our average wind is 7 at 3.9, which is actually pretty good, and our average ISO deviation is -8. So if we put -8 in here, this should give us at 20,000 feet, it's probably going to be what, -32? -33, there we go. And cruise wind is 7 at 007. Let's clear that. 007 at 3.9. There we go. Job done. I can now execute that. The aircraft now knows what it needs to do to actually, what calculations need to be made for it to take off and land safely, and what the fuel burn is going to be like, and all of that. Now, we do not have VNAV per se in this aircraft, but you do have this advisory VNAV. We do not have... So that one, yes. We do not have that one either. And there are a couple of other bits that are not available in this aircraft. For example, the MLS system is going to be one of those. Okay, the aircraft appears to be fairly... What does that button do? Oh, key not active. There we go. I think that was a button to be able to send text messages to air traffic control. But yeah, that's not in use anymore. So that is our performance sorted. We are happy with the route. If we're happy with the route, we can do that. Then we've got, so for some reason there are legs, that, and then direct to Listo, Honley, Kidley. I mean, what we could do is TR161 direct. No, that would be fine. Then we've got Honley, Kidley, and after that there is nothing. So we could put the arrival in if we know what runway we are expecting. Now I think I'm going to be expecting runway 2. I think I'm going to be expecting ILS runway 26 left, but I'm not 100% certain yet. So I will need to decide on that at some point. However, for now, I'm going to set that with the Kidley 1 Golf approach and the Willow transition, and I'll show you how to move things around once we are in the air. So that is that done. Now you'll notice over on this side these are flashing. If we move that now to nav, both of those will come online, and now we have a PFD and ND as you'd expect. What do we need to do now? Well, at this point, I would probably go ahead and close that door and lock said door. If you were using ATC, of course, you'd be trying to dial up various ATC. At this point, you'd probably be looking for clearance or engine start or pushback, whatever you want to do. We will probably do a bit of a pushback. Maybe I should have a look. Let me just have a quick look outside to see where exactly we are and what the pushback needs to be. I guess I could do a pushback and push out there, and then I'll go down. GSX just doesn't work. I don't know why I paid for that. Yes, and then we'll go all the way down there, and that will be our takeoff runway. That seems like a good idea. There we go. Okay, so that is that set. What we want to do is we want to set up our glare shield or glare panel, and we want to set up everything on it. So our control panel or autopilot mode control panel will have flaps 80 for our takeoff. So if you just click there, that will give you your V2 speed. Now I prefer to put this to V2 plus 10 or V2 plus 15. I'm going to use V2 plus 15 today. I also want to set up my initial altitude, which is, I know this already is going to be 5,000 feet, although we will probably be blasting straight through that. Course for runway 23, I believe, is 232. So we'll set that on this course. What I'm then going to do is set the ILS for this. So go to shots. 23 right, ILS 1095. So press that because that one's closer. 1095. Flick that over, and actually it comes in immediately. So that is good. So we've got that. Now what I'm going to do is look at my departure. So my Listo 2 Romeo departure. And it looks like if we're going to be, obviously we're going to be flying this manually, so it looks like at 2 nautical miles from Manchester's VOR, we should be turning onto a heading of 161 direct to Listo. So I'm probably going to be trying to do that. And it says aircraft requesting cruising levels at or below flight level 070 will be routed via PEDIC. Well, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going up to flight level 200. So for the Listo, we have minimum climb gradients as well. 14.6% up to 2 miles, then 6% up to 5,000 for ATC or airspace purposes. So we'd assume that we would get clearance beyond that. So that is what we're going to be trying to do. We'll go 15 degrees of, well, it says minimum climb gradient is 15%, but we'll probably go 15 degrees up, and we'll climb out like that, and then maybe bring it down to 10. I'm just looking at what these are telling me, so we'll probably be around there. There's the 14% for it. 2,200 foot per minute is the minimum climb. I think this aircraft is probably going to be doing more than that. We'll be probably hitting about 3,000 foot per minute, 3,500 feet per minute. Might do a steep climb out. So yeah, we won't be following the 14.6%. If we go up to 15 degrees of bank. I think that would be more like 10 degrees of bank, 10 degrees of pitch. So that will be fine. So that's the plan. So I'm going to tune in Manchester 10355 on this side. Tune that in, and it's also going to be 232. I assume. Well, actually, it doesn't matter, because all we are going to be looking for is, if I go ahead and switch on my DMEs, all we are going to be looking at is DME2. That's all we are going to be looking for, and looking for 2 nautical miles on that. It doesn't matter what else we have. Okay. I'm okay with everything that has happened thus far. I'm now going to remove the chocks, and now there is no need to go back to that particular page. So I probably do not need this page either right now. That's all I'm going to need. And this aircraft, I would say, is pretty much ready for engine start. So what I'm going to do, in fact, there is something else I need to do on this because of that Airbus. we are going to need a pushback. So I'm going to ask for a connection of the pushback tug. Once that's connected, we'll get this aircraft pushed back, but I'm going to go through the before start checklist, I think. So what else do I need to now do? Think everything appears set here. Might want to switch flight directors on. In fact, we'll do that after start. We'll set takeoff. That's on Toga max, so we have an option of reduced or max. Should we try reduced today? I don't know. We'll see. Let's go ahead and get this aircraft pushed back anyway, first off. So we'll go ahead and start pushing the aircraft back. Does that actually look connected up properly? It does as well. No, it doesn't. It looks terrible. It looks like it's clipped through. No, it has clipped through. Well, that's just rubbish. GSX. Just, I don't know why I purchased that. Anyway, whilst this is being pushed back, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to switch the beacon light on, which is up there. And then I'm going to get the, well actually, before that I'm actually going to keep an eye out for what I'm actually doing. Let's get the aircraft turned. We're at a good spot to turn the aircraft. Yep. So obviously this would be controlled by something else usually, not you. So you wouldn't have to. If you can always try a pre-plan for one of these, and work from there. Okay, this seems good enough. Let's go ahead and disconnect. So we'll put that on. Goodbye. Are you going to go? I hope it drives off. Go away. There we go. Okay, it is now going away. Right, let's go ahead and make sure all of this is ready to go. Everything here is correct, so we don't have to touch anything there. All the fuel pumps can now go on. We'll leave everything else on those panels. Anti-ice is now on. This is why we need it, because to start this aircraft you want the anti-ice on. It's to do with the way the valves are in the bleed air, so nothing to really worry about. It's just the way it is. Packs can go off, APU air can go off, and we are now ready to start this aircraft. Now the way to start this aircraft is to switch the start master on, flick over to an engine. We start with engine 4. We'd start the engine, and then we wait, there we go. We'll wait for about 12% on the N2, 12 to 15%, and then put the fuel in. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to try and do this with head tracking. So instead of jumping back and forth, it will be somewhat easier for me, I hope. So head tracking is now enabled. Now I can just look up here and go, right, let's start engine number 4. And then I can just take a close look at that. Or I guess I could move in. Yep, that's 12. So we'll put some fuel in. There we go. First engine coming to life. And we just go through this entire process for all 4 engines. As I said, this will no longer be required. We'll just go and sit there. Now if you want, you can get your aircraft to show up by pressing that button, but it's not always the most useful. Now as soon as those 3 lights go out, you can go ahead and start up the next engine. That's what we're going to be doing. There's 12 on the fuel flow for N2, sorry, N2, not the fuel flow. Just started reading that for a second. That engine's coming to life. This should click out any second now. There it goes. Start engine 2. Now you'll notice, in fact, I should probably show you this. I'll show you for engine 1 how this works. So have a look at this bit, these two right here. So your frequency for the APU generator, your AC frequency and your voltage that you're getting. You'll notice that when these three go out, that will spike up just a bit. Well, it will go back to normal. When we flick a starter on, because it's drawing power or drawing current, it will drop. So watch that, and then there it goes. So that's a nice little thing that it does. Last engine, and that can go in now. Whilst all of that is happening, I'm going to put the flight directors on. I'm going to activate the auto throttle because we're going to be using Toga. Generally, I don't use Toga; I do it manually. But for this video, I'm going to be using Toga, and we'll see what happens. Now we're just waiting for this to click out. There it goes. Okay, now the engine's coming to life. What we need to do is switch that to off, switch to start master off, and get these generators online. Get the power to the galley. There we go. The generators are now up. Now what we can do is we need to get all the pitot heats and the screen heats on. So I've got a switch for all the pitot heats. There we go. Ice detect switch needs to go to on, and we don't have to worry about ice right now. So we'll go engine anti-ice can go off, APU air goes on again, and now we switch on both packs. There we go. Okay, good. Up on the upper panel, this one up here, we need to get engine pumps 1 and 3 on, AC pump to auto, PTU needs to go on, and I think brake fans go to automatic, and I think there we are pretty much good to go. Be aware that that is where your strobe light is. I'm not going to be looking up there for the strobe lights. I have a switch for that as well, but if you need to do it manually, that is where it's going to be. You will be using it in a few seconds. Quick check of everything. That seems reasonable. I'm now going to put the flaps to 18, and we should be able to start rolling. So we'll slowly put the power in just to get the aircraft rolling, and we are underway. Excellent. Now if you wanted to, you could have a look at your entire plan by bringing this to plan mode, which is that one there. We'll go straight and then turn. Take that to plan mode, and then in your legs page you should be able to step through everything like so, so you can see exactly where you are going. And you'll notice that I have a route discontinuity right there. The route ends and then it picks up somewhere else. So that is something that I will need to be looking into and fixing. But that's not a problem, because normally you'd be vectored in at this point, but unfortunately I'm not going to be vectored in. So that is how you check that, should you wish to do so. I'm going to go back to map, and I'm going to delete that. No, clear that. Don't want anything there. And we'll go back to the previous page. We are going a little bit quickly, but it's a good test of the brakes right there. So, checking out my brakes. checking out my steering as well, making sure that works. We'll go all the way down to the end, I think. And what we're going to try and do, this is not something I often do, we're going to try to run a rolling start, which is going to be interesting. So at the moment my taxi lights, I've switched them on because I've noticed the sun's behind me. Sometimes you do not need to have taxi lights on. Sometimes you do, sometimes you do not. So I think I have everything ready to go. So a good thing to do is to press config check, which is that there. And if it beeps, you know you've got an issue. It has not beeped for me, so I think I am all right. So what I'm now going to do is switch my taxi lights off, switch my strobe lights on, switch my landing lights on. And we're going to turn in here and we're going to go straight for it. So I can press this button here, cabin call. That will tell the cabin crew to sit. And we'll go ahead and line up. I say line up, it's going to be, as I said, an immediate takeoff.
Cabin is secured for departure.
So I'll turn the aircraft to line up with my desired angle. Spool up to about 50-60%. Make sure that's stabilised. All the way up.
Thrust set. Airspeed alive.
Togue up. Okay, we now are
80 knots.
cross-checked.
Go. Rotate.
And up we go. Now, as I reach 147 knots, I want to lift the nose of the aircraft.
Gear up. Lights out.
Gear up. And there we go. I'd say that was a fairly decent takeoff. I can then press reduced. Or actually I can press climb for climb max to reduce my power. And we're at 2 nautical miles for that, so we'll go ahead and turn. Now this aircraft, of course, when you're turning you want to pitch the nose up ever so slightly, and so we'll take that turn in and we'll let the aircraft start to accelerate to 210 knots. I'd say that's a good acceleration for this aircraft. And we're going to pitch to 10 degrees at this point. So that should get the aircraft accelerating reasonably well, I would hope, with a climb of about 2,200 feet, which funnily enough is about the climb that they wanted us to do anyway. So there we go. Now all I'm doing now is just flying to the line. I will be going into a more automated flight in a moment. But for now, we appear to be flying all right. So what I'm going to do is part of an after takeoff checklist. I'm going to switch on all the engine airs, switch off the APU air, keep an eye on my flying. PTU can go off. Landing lights are okay for now, I guess. And we'll continue trimming the aircraft for a better rate of climb. And now what I'm going to do is I will go vertical speed.
Speed checked. Flaps 0.
Flaps go up. And we've got our vertical speed. I want 2,000 foot per minute. And you'll see now that we're definitely climbing. And as soon as we cross here and that listo, as soon as that listo goes pink, which it does now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to LNAV, go up to 20,000, press nav 1, and vertical speed wants to be a little bit awkward. Said 2,000 foot per minute, and we're at 210, which is absolutely fine by me, and we'll start climbing all the way to 20,000 feet. Right, we've passed the transition altitude as well, so at that point I'm going to set this back down to 1013, which is standard pressure, and I think that at 2,000 feet per minute we can now head towards 250 knots. In fact, we can probably still climb a little bit more steeply than we are. Let's go ahead and take a look if there's a nice, decent... Well, actually, that's a reasonable picture for this aircraft. There we go. Not too shabby overall. And the sunsets could be something in a while. But for now, I think this is probably the best we're going to get. Okay. Continue flying, and I'm happy with everything that this aircraft is presently doing. Probably want to increase my rate of climb just a touch. And now I'm going to go, let's go up to 280 knots. We're going to pass 250 as we cross 10,000 feet. And as we cross 10,000 feet, I would like to switch off the landing lights. There we go. That's worked out pretty well. Okay, so just to do a double check of my after takeoff checklist, making sure everything is okay. Engine air is on, APU air is on. I need to now stop, actually, yes, let's switch that off and stop the APU, because that is no longer needed and we are above 10,000 feet. You generally do not want to be using the APU when you are too high up. Similarly, when we come back down, I will not be starting it until we have descended below 10,000 feet. But I think we are absolutely fine. So now, whilst we're doing this, what I want to show you is going to be the this bit. So I've clearly got a route discontinuity here, and if I go into plan mode, you'll notice that Holly and D113V are pretty close to each other. So what I'm going to do is, I do not want to go to Willow. What I do want to do is I want to go to this one, D113, D113V. So I'm going to click that there. It will show up in the scratch pad. That's what this bit is called. We'll go back up here, and I'm going to click the next one that I wanted, which is going to be, if we take a check, Holly. So we are going to click Holly, and that will replace that. And if we look in the chart and execute that, no, go back. Maybe if I step through it properly, we'll go from Tufas directly to that. And now we do not have the route discontinuity. We are fine in our journey. Any other things that I want to look at? Well, yes, that seems to be a drop that is unnecessary. Flight level 150 at Kidley. So I want to change that. So I want to maintain 20,000 feet at Kidley. So that is what I'm going to do. There we go. and then we've got plenty of time to descend further a little later on. So that seems to work fairly nicely for me. We are almost at our cruise altitude, but you'll notice that we are losing speed, and that is because the air is thinner up here, so it's not as easy for maximum climb power to actually give us our climb rates. So I'm going to drop the vertical speed to 1,500 foot per minute to enable us to continue speeding up. We should be at our destination at our designated altitude very soon. Now, the one thing that I have forgotten to do is set the timer. So I should have probably done that. And in all honesty, now that the sun is setting, I probably want to bring some of these instrument lights in. So we have some instrument lighting across here that I'm going to switch on, so that when we're landing, we can actually see everything. There we go. Now, weather radar is not necessary in this because can't use it. I don't think it works properly. Not yet anyway. And I've not set the transponder because there's no other air traffic today. So those are the reasons I've not done those things for this particular flight. This one's all about learning how to fly the aircraft, really, as opposed to anything else. Okay, so we are almost at our altitude. In fact, we are. I can now press CO there and bump that up, and we'll go to. Let's go to flight 0.64, Mach 0.64 as our cruise speed for today. And for that, I will then press MCT. There we go. And we're now in that mode. Excellent. There we go. Right, now if I were to zoom out on this, you'll see that we might see a top of descent. There's a top of descent for this aircraft, so we will be descending sometime after Kidley, so I need to bear that in mind. That's just something that I need to do. And the aircraft is now settling in somewhat below under 80%, and that's absolutely fine for this aircraft's speed. Okay, whilst I'm doing this, again because of single pilot operations, I'm going to set up things like my landing altitude now. So I know that Gatwick is closer to 200 feet. I think it's 180 feet. I could check it just to be doubly sure. I don't often fly in and out of these, so we'll go to approach, and it doesn't matter which runway I pick because it's all the same runways. And you'll see that we have airport elevation, runway 203 feet, 196 feet. So that tells me all I need to know. Decision height needs to be 396 feet as well. We'll sort that out in a little while. I also have the ATIS for Gatwick, 136525. It might be a good idea to tune that in so that I can hear it as soon as possible. So we'll go ahead and do that. 136. Five, 2-5. I'm actually going to slow the aircraft down a touch. Now there is some visible moisture out there, so there is a potential for icing, but at the moment there's no icing, so we do not have to worry about the anti-ice. I think when we get into our descent, we are going to need to do that, so it would be something to remember to switch on. There we go. Right, as soon as we pick that up, we'll be aware of that. Also, the other things I can do is I could look at Kidley and say we are going in towards Midhurst, so we've got 1140, just to make sure We could go 1140. We could go Midhurst and then direct Mayfield, but we're going to be doing it like this. In fact, I'm considering doing that. I'm considering going from Tufos directly to Mayfield and skipping Holly altogether. That could be a possibility. Now, normally, this would be something that... initial approach, where's the initial approach? This would be something that ATC would tell you. So I could go in... That's coming in through there. Or I could just join in directly there and turn in. Which seems the smarter idea. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's do a change of plan. Midhurst to Mayfield. Yep, not even two files. We'll just go Midhurst to Mayfield directly. There we go. That should bring... That might bring my top of descent back a little, but that's okay. And planning all of this, it looks like we need to be at 2,000 feet, 8.5 miles from Mayfield. So Mayfield is going to be necessary. And also we begin our turn, so let's say we are probably going to be coming in almost on this trajectory. The turn we should probably begin at 4,000, 1.5 miles. It says only via May holding, but we're not actually doing that, are we? So we don't need to be at 2,000 there. We need to be at 2,000 there. I would say Mayfield is going to be an important one. So I'm going to tune in 117 points. What is it? 1179. So we'll have 1179. Pop that in there. Get that ready. We'll see that pop up on the DME, I'm sure. I believe we are approaching Kidley now. And 257 is our final approach course, but we're not really worried about that just yet. 110.9 is going to be important as well. So let's go ahead and get that ready, preset. And I'm going to preset that in this one too. So this is for auto landing. So for the approach. For approach mode, we want them set up on both, and for the auto land, of course, but that is not something I need to worry about. Keeping an eye on fuel.
Airport information golf.
There's Gatwick Airport.
000 Zulu. Wind tree 40 at 8. Visibility 6. Sky condition. Ceiling 2500 broken. Temperature 6. Dew point tree. QNH 1015. ILS runway 26 left and visual runway 26 right in use. Landing and departing runway 26 left and runway 26 right. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact you have golf.
I've just realised that that's given the wrong time for some reason. Not sure why that's given the wrong time, but it has. Right, there's Kidley coming up. What's my range on this? 20 miles? Yeah, 20 miles. So Kidley is 10 miles away. In fact, there's the 10. Yep, there's the 10-mile range ring. So that's fine. Oh, and the other reason I do not switch TCAS on for now is since Sim Update 3, I have had issues with it randomly giving me a TCAS warning, which you may have heard in a previous video. Where'd the moon go? I've lost the moon. There it is. Where'd my plane go? There it is. Now, it's not exactly the picture I was after, but oh well. Might be okay-ish for something. I'm sure I could use it in something or other. So yes, there are a few reasons. Once Sim Update 4 is out, I hope things will things will be a little bit better. Right, I should start preparing my descent. What am I going down to? 4,000 by Mayfield, which is there, and then down to 2,000. So maybe, just for planning purposes, let's try and figure out what the 4,000 to Mayfield is going to be. So let's go 4,000. And then we'll have to set up the vertical speed. And what we're going to be looking for here is going to be what we call a banana, green banana. And that will come up. So we're about 30 miles from our top of descent. Just a shallow turn. Definitely going to be icing conditions there. It is cold today. So we do need to be concerned about that. So things I need to remember to do for starting or for getting this aircraft ready for landing is we'll need to switch the PTU on. We'll need to switch the APU on below 10,000 feet. We'll need to check our landing speeds. In fact, let's go ahead and do that now. So we're going to be landing flaps 33, which is going to be that there. So our reference is 116. What we want to do is we probably want to fly the end of the approach about 5 knots over. So 121 is what we're going to probably set our approach speed to, or try and fly to 121. On the final approach, when we get to there, I want to be doing about 160 knots, and then we'll just gradually slow the aircraft down. I'll do it... I'll probably do it manually. I'll switch off the auto throttle there and then manually take control, fly it down all the way. I think that's probably the best option. Let's go ahead and click this little screw to set our heading in the correct direction in case we have to do a change in heading. And there is a slight crosswind, of course. What was the crosswind once again? Let's pull up Gatwick's information, just so I know what I'm doing.
Gatwick Airport information, Golf 2000 Zulu. Wind tree 9er at 8. Visibility 6. Sky
339 at 8. So it's coming in from about that direction there. So I'll be turning slightly into the wind, so slightly over to the right hand side. Right, we're coming up to the top of descent. Let's go vertical speed and start gently easing the aircraft down. There we go, we're now in vertical speed mode. You can see it just there. Now we'll bring it down to 1,000 foot per minute. Okay, now at this point in time, I know we are going to be going into icing conditions, so I'm going to make sure I've got my brain prepared that in, say, a minute, I'm going to switch on the anti-ice. Now, what we're going to be looking for here is going to be a drop in speed to 280. And then a drop in altitude. There's the banana. So that tells us what we want to know. So roughly that should be 4,000 feet at Mayfield. Do not forget that we will be slowing down further, so that will obviously change as well. Right, at this point in time, I want to probably set, right, what should I do here? I think I want to set 257 on this. So let's get 257 set. So that's one of the courses adjusted. Again, single pilot operations makes things a little bit more difficult. There we go, that's 257. And we're still okay, we're still out of the ice. So for anti-ice, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to switch on all 4 engine anti-ices, tail anti-ice and the outer wing anti-ice. Once I switch off the outer wing anti-ice, the inner wing anti-ice will go on for a minute. But for that, engine air must be on. So I do not know what the base of these clouds are again. I guess they would tell you on the ATIS. So let's pay attention to the ATIS again, if it is indeed correct.
Airport information Golf 2000 Zulu. Wind tree 28 at 8. Visibility 6. Sky condition. Ceiling 2500 broken. Temperature 5.
Okay, 2500 broken. If that takes us into icing conditions, I'm going to have to leave the anti-ice on as I land. Because of, again, I will not be able to switch these things off, switch the engine air and all of that over in time. So yes. Now the plan is to go flaps 18, flaps 24, flaps 33 at speeds 200 for flaps 18 will go, 160 for flaps 24, and flaps 33 will go when we've got our final approach speed. I think that's what I'll do. I cannot remember the exact limits for each stage of flaps, but I do not want them to be deployed too early. So I'm probably going to be at 200 here, and then I'll go flaps 18. So flaps 18 on the base leg, then we'll turn in, then flaps 24 there, and then down to flaps 33. So I want 160 when we are there and flaps 24. That seems like a wise idea. Let's go and set this up to 1015. Still waiting for the anti-ice. I do not want to switch it on too early. PTU can now go on. I still do not want to switch the APU on too early as well. And as we're now getting closer to flight level 250, I'm going to... Sorry, flight level 250, flight level 100, I'm going to drop the speed to 250. And then you'll notice that that banana is right around Mayfield. Okay, we are going to be entering icing conditions, so I'm going to switch all the anti-ice systems on at this point in time that need to be switched on. We're only about 1,000 feet above the ice. Always take a look here, take a picture. Any other pictures? That's a decent picture. That's possibly a little nicer. That might be the nicest of the lot as we begin to turn. And potentially... Now I do need to slow down a little further, so I'm going to pull the air brake a bit. This is not... It's generally not ideal to... You don't always want to pull the air brake, but sometimes you just have to. How do I... There it is. Just a nice picture of an aircraft banking for its approach. Landing lights will go on in a few seconds too. This does not... Why does that just not look right to me? I don't know. Something about that picture does not look right. It looks better there. Could it be that I need to just turn my camera a little too. Well, anyway, so I've pulled the speed brake just to help slow this aircraft down a bit, and we'll do that. And now I'm going to switch the landing lights on too. Now we still haven't got into the ice, but that's okay. Under 10,000 feet, we're going to start the APU. So go ahead and click that, get the APU started. Now what we do not want to do is we do not want to switch on APU air immediately. Normally you want to wait about 1 or 2 minutes before you switch on APU air, but we can go into the APU, get the APU generator up and running as well to augment the we're getting pretty close to our landing zone, to augment our engines. There we go, 1,000 foot per minute now. Probably needs to be a bit more than that. There we go. So we'll go ahead and get the APU generator up and running, and we'll wait for a moment. What I'm going to do is also check the outside air temperature. An easy way to do that is just click aircraft, and you can see it's -11. So it's definitely going to be icing conditions. Says the descent is quite slow and gentle. What I'm now going to do is set that to 20. Get ready for this as well. So I'm going to set this for 257, even though it's the wrong frequency, because we're not actually flying with it. I'm going to do that. And we're going to prepare for the approach and capture. So what I'm probably going to do is probably do this slightly differently to what that says. So I'll fly in along this, and then I might just do a slight cut. Maybe, I don't know, head 300 or 320, like that, and then have it intercept and turn in. At which point, of course, I do want to be at the designated speeds. In fact, at this point, I probably want to start looking at slowing this aircraft down anyway. The aircraft does slow down very quickly, so that there isn't all too much to worry about. Now, if we do have a missed approach, we do need to check the missed approach altitude, and that will be on this, I believe. So, final approach course 257, mandatory is going to be 2,000 feet. For the missed approach, continue heading 178 and do not go above 3,000 feet. So missed approach altitude is going to be 3,000 feet direct to Mayfield. I'm surprised that this has not shown up as ice yet. There it goes, just as I said that. So we are in a bit of icing conditions, but nothing too severe. That's the coast. Right, I really should be focusing on flying now. Okay, at this point I probably want to do some of the before landing checklists, approaches and landing. So landing lights are on, fasten seatbelts, well that's on automatic, nav radios are set, the MCP, the glare shield, motor control panel, that's set, APU is on. We'll put APU air on as well. Can we do dual bleed on this? No, probably not. We've never tried dual bleed on this. Then we're going to let's do a cabin call now. Will it tell them to prepare for landing? I have no idea. But we're going to go flaps 18 in a few seconds. So actually do that. Have this now set to do not 0 to 2,000. And let's start slowing this aircraft down for a gentle approach onto the glide. There we go. 210. And we'll pull out the brakes. Switch that off. I don't know. It's not going down to idle for some reason. Oh, because of the anti-ice. In fact, we're out of the ice, it seems. So we're out of the worst of it. Right, we're making the turn now. And what we're going to do is we'll go inner one on, tail goes off, those shut. Now we can actually idle the aircraft, which is what we wanted. Get the aircraft really starting to slow itself down. I think I've got this fairly right, which is surprising for me. Really is surprising. I think I have got this reasonably correct. As we go in, maybe try and take another picture. I don't know if there's a... I mean, it's a reasonable opportunity for a photo. What sort of photo do I want to take? That? Possibly. Not that, that's pretty bad. So there are moments where Microsoft Flight Simulator does start to look quite realistic at points. There's still bits that are missing. I will say that. There are bits that need to be looked at and figured out, but it is getting there. It's definitely getting there. Probably that or something. Probably should stop taking too many. We're down to 210. I think I want to come down to 200 now. So we'll go down to 200. At this point, I probably want to... So if I were to pull up the initial approach, you'll see that that is where I currently am. I could cut that if I really wanted to cut it, which might be a good idea to do. In fact, let's slow down 190 and actually go flaps 18. It's probably an even smarter idea. Right, we're at our set altitude, which is good. And I'm now going to go heading select of, not that way. Let's go heading select 310, flaps 18. Actually, 320 will do. Or 320 will do nicely. And we'll go approach mode.
Speed checked, gear down.
Let's actually swap that correctly. Approach mode, there we go. So we should now pick up the final fix. Now at this point, I no longer needed the LNAV mode on that, so I've just gone to, on both of them, well, it'd help if that was correctly selected too. There we go. So it would have helped if I swapped them both out. It says gear down, but I'm not actually going to go gear down right now. We're going to slow down even further. And there's the runway. So we're actually going to start seeing if this aircraft will start turning in. So we do have approach mode on. I'm hoping it picks this up, despite the fact that I've made a slight mistake.
Localizer alive.
There it goes. It's picked up the localizer. Has it picked up the glide slope? I think we're still above the glide, so that's okay. So it's turning me into the localizer, you can see that. And now I'm going to slow right down. 160. Gear down. And let's see if I can get this landed. Okay, I can switch that off. I can actually, because there's no ice now,
Speed checked. Flaps 24.
I'll do that. Flaps 24. I'm just going to slow it down even further. In fact, let's slow down to, at 5 miles to go, let's slow down to 130, let's slow down to 140, shall we? Let's do that. Now we're on the glide slope. Now we'll let the aircraft settle. And you'll notice that I'm flying in a slightly crabbed direction. And that's because of the crosswind. So I'm going to have to be wary of that. And now I'm going to take charge of the throttles. So let's go. So we've got, you'll notice there that we also have the auto land switched on, but I'm going to, that's the autopilot controls are mine. Auto throttle, that's now mine as well. And we're now going to go full flaps. And we're going to slow the aircraft down to our desired speed, which is going to be 116 is the, so 121. So we'll just get the aircraft pitching down and slowing down all the way down. $1,000 feet to go. Now you'll notice we are a little fast, so I'm going to pull the speed brake a little right now, just to get the aircraft slowing down a bit. I might leave the speed brake out all the way. So generally you do want to have the speed brake out. No, actually we're all right now. We're fine for this approach. Now I just need to ensure that the aircraft lands as I want it to. 500 feet to go. Slightly low is fine.
Minimums.
Landing.
Glide slope. 100.
Speed brake out.
50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Spoilers.
Aircraft
yellow,
down.
green.
Rudder out of the wind.
Brake pressure checked.
And on the brakes. And we are down. Not the absolute smoothest of approaches,
60 knots.
but not too bad overall. Not too bad at all. And that is that. We'll go ahead and take this. Is this high-speed exit? Appears to be some sort of high-speed exit. Let's go ahead and do that. Now we are going to be crossing a second runway, although this runway is really hardly ever used. And we can go ahead and bring the speed brake in, bring the flaps in. We'll go ahead and switch the strobe lights off. We'll go ahead and switch the landing lights off, switch the taxi lights on. get this runway, just cross this runway. And there we go. Now it did get a bit stuttery towards the end. These are some of the issues I've been having with Microsoft Flight Simulator. It has actually got quite bad right now. In previous attempts, I've had a couple of attempts at doing this, and it always gets bad towards the end for some reason. And you'll also notice, for some reason, the exhaust gas temperature of one of my engines is really, really high for no apparent reason. I have absolutely no idea why that engine has such a high exhaust gas temperature. I haven't left anything on, so that is slightly concerning. But there we go. It's still climbing. I'm going to cycle that single engine. I'm just going to cycle that one engine and see what happens. Nope, still climbing. I think there's something wrong with that engine. It might be on fire, you know. There's always something with Microsoft Flight Simulator. No? Nothing. Well, there we go. That is where I'm going to end this video. Let's just ignore that, because I don't think that's a true indication at the moment. I've got no warnings whatsoever, no overheat warnings, nothing. Well, there we are. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to click on the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos. A good parking spot for me. Subscribe to the channel for more videos on Microsoft Flight Simulator. Leave a comment in the comments box below, letting me know what you think. Any suggestions you might have. Oh, this is very, very bad. I'm sure you can see the stuttering and the lagging that is going on. Anyway. Yes, if you can do so, please do consider supporting me on Patreon. Link in the description box below, as are links to my social media and Discord server. That is all from me, and I shall see you next time in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Probably after Sim Update 4, because I cannot fly. At least this is better than what it was. This is definitely better than what it was. Let's see if I can fit my aircraft in between an A380 and a 777. I should probably do that. Is there a parking spot for me? That looks like a parking spot. Let's go ahead and do that.